Hey everybody, welcome. This is Charles E. Smith Jr. This is an Inside Sports production of Talkin Hockey. Before we go on, let's go ahead and first thank our sponsor, thepuckshopshere.com. The best prices and discount hockey gear available online. Free shipping on all orders over $75, and if you enter the promo code Inside Sports upon checkout, you'll get an additional 10% discount. Let me go ahead and introduce my very special guest and co-host, none other than Lonnie Schwartz of Hockey54.com, and you can also follow him on Twitter at TheSchwartz54. Without further ado, the moment you've all been waiting for, the pride of Eastern Canada, ladies and gentlemen, Lonnie Schwartz.
You're like Howard Finkel. What an introduction. Thank you. Yes. And if you don't know who Howard Finkel is out there, former WWF, WWE, in-ring announcer, the man, the myth, the legend, Howard the Fink Finkel. That is the highest compliment you can give anybody in terms of ring announcers. It is not.
Perfect. All right, I would go with a, so he is, what Michael Buffer is to boxing. But you know what? Let's go ahead and talk a little bit of Hockey54.com. What are the latest goings on? I know you have a new series of interviews going up there. Talk to me. Yeah. Let's talk a little Hockey54.com before we get into things.
Sure thing. Got some good interviews up from the All-Star game that we keep bringing out from the vault. The latest is from Pavel Datsyuk, who knows a lot more English than I think people out there give him credit for and even think, because he's got a huge sense of humor on those shoulders, those immensely talented shoulders, I have to say. Because honestly, I was rolling with some shtick, and he was rolling right back with it. And normally you think, man, this guy's English is broken. It's not. He knows what's going on. Like he's sort of playing the part. But if you pry a little deeper, he's a howl, man. He's hilarious. So it's probably one of my favorite interviews that I've ever done is up there now. So if you do check it out, to quote Pavel Datsyuk, and you'll get it once you see it. Thank you very much.
All right, perfect.
That's the latest.
You know, let's get right into this now. We're down to crunch time. All the teams have 6, maybe 7 games to play, depending on who you look at. But you know, as we come down the stretch here, of course, the big news is with Duncan Keith, his big flying elbow on Daniel Sedin. Duncan Keith gets suspended for 5 games, but Daniel Sedin is out with a concussion. He's out indefinitely at this point, I still believe. Now, we look at this, when we all saw the tape and we saw what appeared to be an attempt at a headshot by Daniel Sedin on Duncan Keith prior to Duncan Keith taking his flying elbow. So would you say this is something where, how do we judge this? I mean, was that something ill-advised by Daniel Sedin which led to it? Not necessarily justifies it, but which led to that hit by Duncan Keith?
The way I saw the tape at first presented was Duncan Keith's elbow. I'm like, well, that's just straight out headshot. The guy's going to get suspended. But then I saw what happened behind the net when Daniel Sedin comes to try and finish off a check. Now, Duncan Keith had already gotten rid of the puck, and here comes Sedin, and as Keith turns around, Sedin tries to lay his shoulder in and makes some shoulder contact, but then it proceeds upward and looks like a little bit of chin music going on Duncan Keith. Now, did Keith suffer a concussion from it? Probably not, but who knows with some of the ways guys kind of hide the symptoms. But he's healthy. He's been playing. Then, mid-ice, puck careens off the glass, goes 40 feet in the air, puck is nowhere to be seen. Daniel Sedin turns around and says, "Hello, Mr. Jofa," because Duncan Keith does his best Tito Santana and the flying jalapeno and knocks him clean onto his butt, and he's concussed.
Right.
I mean, look, you could say it's a predatory hit because he's retaliating, and you get that from guys. But from a guy like Duncan Keith, where people look upon him as a better than that kind of guy, okay? He wasn't what Matt Cook was last year. Although I'll give that benefit of the doubt to Matt Cook. This year he's cleaned up his game a ton. But, I mean, think about this. This is a Norris Trophy winner, and he's going out there giving a flying elbow to a guy. Come on, Duncan.
Exactly.
5 games for a Norris Trophy winner who is not what they call a repeat offender. This was just an ill-advised retaliation move. He could have waited for a clean hit opportunity to say, you're going to do that to me? That's fine. I'll give you a good clean hip check right over the blue line when you're coming in with your brother.
And when
That's when you lay it down.
And you think about it, how many times, and they've matched up in the playoffs as well. Now, how many times do you think, when he sees that hit from Daniel Sedin, I think the other thing you think of as a defenseman who can really lay the lumber if you need to is, how many times over the course of them playing did you have a chance to really lay out Daniel Sedin and didn't do it out of a semi-respect factor? That's the other thing that may have been going through Duncan Keith's mind at that time.
Well, this was a crucial game.
Right.
And a crucial time of year. And it's ramping up to playoff time where if the hockey gods have their way, they're going to have another Vancouver and Chicago showdown in some way, shape, or form. If all the stars align and things work out the way people want them to, because it's turned out to be a great playoff matchup. And I hate using the term rivalry because it seems like every team has a rivalry now. I don't get it. It could be like Winnipeg is taking on Florida. This rivalry's heating up. It's not a rivalry, guys.
Well, I think rivalries are born in the playoffs. They're born in the playoffs, and once you have a good, tough playoff series against a team, whether it goes 7 games or there's a huge upset involved, that's when the rivalry is really born. So it's not necessarily out of proximity or about who's in your division. It's really rivalries are born in the playoffs. That's what does it. When I look at the way I sum up the way that rivalries go.
Oh, I like that. I buy into that 100%. It's just lately the term is getting a little overused. Like I said, you'll see like Winnipeg taking on Florida, for example, like I just said, and people are like, "Oh, the rivalry between these two hockey clubs." Rivalry.
The two storied franchises.
The climate?
Well, you know what? Let's talk about when we talk about overused, and let's go ahead and shift gears here a little bit. When we get into overused, and a lot of people talk about it, and that is Sid the Kid, Sidney Crosby. There are the folks who love the Penguins and maybe are hockey purists who love Sidney Crosby, but those outside of the real purist hockey circles, or who don't like Pittsburgh, cannot stand Sidney Crosby and the attention that he gets from the NHL as they try their best at marketing, which, marketing has never been a strong point of the NHL.
Well, I mean, I wanted to talk about this because last year when all this concussion business was going on, it was when Sid coming back, when Sid coming back. And then again this year, when Sid coming back, when Sid coming back. And when I wrote something about it, I said, you know what, the National Hockey League has a bevy of talent. I'm not sure that we've had this amount of top-heavy talent in the league maybe in the last 20 years.
Right.
I can name off several players that are media-worthy, that are marketing-worthy. I mean, top of the list is Steve Stamkos. Steve Stamkos has 55 goals this year. He is far and away the Rocket Richard Trophy winner this year. And yet, where do you see the marketing behind him? When Crosby was down, it was, when's Crosby back? When's Crosby back? When's Crosby back? Not, hey, let's celebrate Steve Stamkos.
Right.
Or the magician that is Pavel Datsyuk. I just talked about the guy having better English than people think. Well, why do people think he can't speak a lick of English? Well, how many times do you, A, see him interviewed? And then, B, how many times do you really, truly see this guy marketed? The guy is quite possibly the most skilled hockey player to ever play the game. I am saying that without restraint, ever. And I'm throwing in the likes of Gretzky and Lemieux and all the historical greats. The amount of skill in Pavel Datsyuk is unprecedented. The guy can do everything, and yet where's a marketing campaign showcasing his talents?
Right.
Those are two guys. Jason Spezza is having a potential MVP year, and all anyone can still talk about, well, he's still got some defensive liability. The guy's top 5 in scoring.
Right.
The guy is a premier playmaker in the National Hockey League, scores beauty goals, dangles defense, and creates scoring opportunities. Not quite like that shit, but still right up there. Where's the marketing campaign?
Right. And the other thing I want to talk about when we look at, if we just take, let's just take Crosby and Stamkos here. And when I look at the way that, when we look at the very first of really, really marketing players to market the game, you got to look at what the NBA did with Michael Jordan. And with Jordan, though, they marketed him, but still, it was all the other guys as well. So it went from Larry Bird, Magic Johnson to Michael Jordan. Now, the NHL, they have a chance here. When you look at Crosby and Stamkos, they could go with the old, do you prefer the pure scorer or do you prefer the magical playmaker type of a thing? But all they've done is manage to polarize everyone with the way that they have tried to market Crosby, and really, like you say, ignoring everyone else. And that, to me, is NHL marketing in a nutshell. They try it, and it's this fumbling, bumbling effort where we're going to market Sidney Crosby, so that means we have to diss everybody else in the league and just showcase this one guy as the perfect hockey player. And I think that's what people in all the other cities are getting upset about. The people in Ottawa, in Tampa, in Detroit, who know hockey. Well, they know hockey in Detroit a little bit more than they do in Tampa, but you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean. I mean, let's think about when Tampa was going to draft Stamkos. Like, it was not even a question. People were thinking they might trade the number 1 overall pick. No. There were billboards everywhere in Tampa saying, "Seen Stamkos." Like, it was his arrival that they were marketing, and he had a slow start, but then the last half of the season in his rookie year, it was like, oh, this is the guy we've been waiting for. And then you waited for him to falter almost because it's the sophomore test. No. There was no faltering with Stamkos. And now the guy is going on to a 50-plus goal season, and there's no sign that he's going to slow that pace down. So it's a disservice to what you have in the league. Yes, Sidney Crosby is arguably the greatest overall player in the league.
Right.
Okay, plays all ends of the ice, hustles like nobody else's business, creates plays, scores goals. Like, he's a great hockey player. It's not to take away from him. But like you just pointed out, back when the NBA was the NBA, you had the likes of Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson. You could even throw in Reggie Miller in there.
Yes, exactly.
Right? Patrick Ewing. Like, they did a good job of showcasing who their elite stars were. Yes, Michael Jordan was the king, but he had a whole lot of guys in his court that they allowed to get the spotlight, not just shine it on number 23. Exactly.
That's really what the NHL needs to learn to do if they're going to follow and you know, Bettman he came up, he was Stern's protege, so to speak, and he's the guy that Stern actually recommended to the NHL as a commissioner. So if he wants to, do things the way that David Stern did, then he needs to follow the entire program as opposed to just getting part of it, which is, okay, they marketed Michael Jordan, we're going to market Sidney Crosby. But he forgets about all the other stuff they did, whereas the NBA, it was, yes, here's Michael Jordan, and here's this, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. Here's all these other guys that we have who are great and fantastic, and you need to see them play.
100% agreed. You got to take that blueprint and apply it because you got way too much talent, way too much talent to ignore. They have to really start doing a better job of marketing the entire league's premier players. So,
exactly.
I'm glad we got to touch on that because it needed to be said. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what we do here on Talkin Hockey.
Yeah, that's right. We talk hockey and we talk about the players, the subjects, everything that affects the game of hockey. We talk about right here. Nothing is off limits. Nobody is off limits. Gary Bettman is not off limits here. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Now, the Buffalo Sabres were, if you remember, mid-season, they're mired in they're in the bottom part of the Eastern Conference, and then, this turnaround has happened. They're now in sole possession of 8th place, the final playoff spot in the East, and they've gone 7-1-2 in their last 10 games. They just overtook the Washington Capitals and looked like there's no turning back for the Buffalo Sabres. They were talking about, just a couple of months ago, has Lindy Ruff's time run out? You know, have the players tuned him out? Is the run in Buffalo over? And now this happens. You're out there in the East. All of us out in the West want to know what happened over there in Buffalo.
I wish I almost had an answer. It's like it came out of nowhere. What happened with the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Toronto Maple Leafs have a strong two-thirds of a season almost, and the Buffalo Sabres just kind of coasted along there a little bit and was really inconsistent. And then all of a sudden, they're the hottest team in hockey during the last 20 games of the season. It's as if they just kind of hung around there, made sure that, okay, we can remain a little competitive here and there, be inconsistent, and then boom.
Right.
Oh, we're in the playoff hunt. They just remain on the cusp long enough. And I mean, look, I look at their roster right now, and they've got a little bit of that scoring by committee attitude, things going on. Like Pominville's leading the way, but he's down there at a -7. You know, their top line guys are looking like minuses. So while they're chewing up minutes, they're still on the ice for a few goals here and there. So,
right.
I mean, you got to think to yourself, what happened? They spent all this money, and then towards the end of the year, let me say it in English. Are these the kind of teams you have to look out for? Absolutely, because look what happened to Philadelphia a couple of years ago. They eke in on the last game, on the last shot of the regular season, and then they go to the Stanley Cup final against Chicago. Is this what's going to happen with the Buffalo, as my friend Eric Rosenheck would say, the Buffalo Sabres? Is that what's going to happen with them? Who knows? Because, he's doing a Dominic Hasek impression. Dominic Hasek never said Sabre. It's Sabres. But that's the big question you have to ask, because throughout the entire year it was, look at all this money, look at the team floundering. Does Lindy Ruff, like you pointed out, still have what it takes to coach this team? And then the ship gets righted. It's like they should retitle the season Lindy Ruff's Rib. Look what happens. The guy.
And, the other thing is, when we look at it, maybe is it possible there was maybe a little bit of a heart transplant there between the Toronto and Buffalo? They're not that far apart. So maybe somehow someone worked some voodoo and put whatever was powering the Toronto Maple Leafs into the Buffalo Sabres and vice versa, because they started going in opposite directions at right about the same time.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's like when Toronto came to town, they gave them some chicken wings and said, "Hey guys, these are on us. These are on us. You have these chicken wings. Everything will still be all right for you guys." Oh, okay. We'll take that. It's a Buffalo delicacy. We all know it. The world knows it. Yeah, no, they're from the Anchor Bar. You're all set, guys. You're all set. And then it just all goes downhill. No, that's the most absurd and ridiculous theory I could have come up with.
Okay, well, hey, it's a good play on my voodoo theory, though. I like it. We're working in perfect harmony here. So in two other teams, powerhouse teams with, a lot of talent in the top 6 forwards, and they kind of were going in opposite directions this year as far as the regular seasons they were having. It's like with the San Jose Sharks, it's really the season starts, and it's a matter of, okay, are they going to just win the division outright, or are they going to contend for best record in the Western Conference or the President's Trophy? And they wind up floundering and just now really, starting to solidify a playoff spot versus the Rangers, who we know have terrible regular seasons and, may or may not make the playoffs and have always underachieved. Now this year, the Rangers made good use of their roster and have that terrific regular season going, versus the San Jose Sharks, who, despite all that talent, were playing like the Rangers all year long. So I don't know what happened with that East Coast, West Coast transition there.
Nobody predicted for 1 second that the New York Rangers were going to be this good this year.
Right.
Nobody. I can't remember at the beginning of the season a single soul in the hockey universe saying that the New York Rangers are going to be the number 1 team in the East. Yet they got Brad Richards, and has he been what they were bargaining for? Some would say maybe a little bit under expectation. Mm-hmm. 60 points, he's at a 0, 24 goals, 36 assists. You got Marian Gaborik, who's at the top of their list there at 69 points, 38 goals, 31 assists. The big question, though, in the playoffs is will Marian Gaborik show up? Because remember, when he did make his last playoff appearance, he was just sort of coasting on the ice. like the guy didn't even know he was supposed to be playing a hockey game.
Right.
So, but if you look at the team as a whole and you see what their strengths are, I mean, really, the lowest guy on the totem pole when it comes to plus minus, you've got Ruslan Fedotenko at a -9. And I know plus minus is an odd statistic to point out, but
right.
I mean, if your lowest is a -9, and your defensive core, including Michael Del Zotto and shot blocker extraordinaire Dan Girardi anchoring it, Ryan McDonough. I mean, these guys are playing some quality hockey all around. And then you have, arguably, the best goaltender in the National Hockey League right now anchoring all that. That's a recipe for hopeful success in the playoffs because nobody was counting on the Rangers. Nobody. And then, like we talked about, the San Jose Sharks were plummeting. We talk about them. What happens? They take over the lead in their division. You talked about voodoo. What are we doing here? I'm not from Haiti.
You know what? When we talk about the Sharks, though, okay, now they have gone. They're 6-3-1 in their last 10 games to start to solidify things. But when we look at that Western Conference playoff picture, and this is, you can't even make up this amount of drama. They've got 88 points. We got Calgary at the bottom fighting for the playoff spots with 85 points. You have 6 teams. You got San Jose, Dallas, Phoenix, LA, Calgary, and Colorado. 6 teams separated by 3 points fighting for 2 playoff spots. What kind of mathematics can you apply to that?
That's drama, baby. And that's what makes it so interesting when it comes playoff time is, yes, you can win your division with 88 points and still crack the top 3 and have home ice advantage when all of last week you weren't even in the playoff picture.
Yeah.
So that's really amazing how the divisions work out in the National Hockey League when you have teams like San Jose sitting at 88 points and the top 2 teams are, well, let's just say having a healthy lead on top of you when it comes to conference standings.
Well, the other thing, and I'll tell you what, the epitome of this is I went to watch the Kings when they played Boston here on Saturday. The Kings started the day first place in the division and 3rd place in the conference. By the time the game started, by the time the puck dropped, they were 2nd in the division and 7th in the conference because of how the points work out. And tonight I'll be at Honda Center to check out the San Jose Sharks, who we've been talking about as they take on the Anaheim Ducks too. But yeah, it's really, and we look at the Pacific Division, 4 teams made it last year, including all 3 of the California teams. This year, 4 teams may make it other than the Anaheim Ducks, but it could only be 1 team with 6 games to play.
That's what makes the regular season worth it. We always ask towards halfway, during the year, everybody looks at the teams that are counted out. Why do we even play a regular season? It's not even exciting during the regular. Look at what's going on right now. We just kind of tapped that on the head right there. Why is the regular season important? Look at the last 10 games of the season and how the playoffs are structured. You'll have your answer right there because we're looking at teams that are on the cusp fighting to get in, and once they do get in, it's a whole other season.
Yeah, definitely. And, one thing I wanted to touch on when we talk about the, unexpected happening, and that is the St. Louis Blues. I did want to just clean up a little bit with the Rangers, though, and that was with Brad Richards. I think when, Brad Richards, to me, he's a very solid hockey player. But to me, ever since he won that Conn Smythe in 2004 on a roster that included Martin St. Louis and Vinny Lecavalier, I think he's been overrated as far as what type of hockey player he is. He's still been Brad Richards the whole time, and he is definitely an asset to a roster. But he won the Conn Smythe on a team that had 2 bona fide, what you'd call superstar, super skill players, and he turned out to be, quote-unquote, the best of all of them in that postseason. I think that led to just, I don't even know if I want to call it overrated, but maybe overhyping or just kind of misdiagnosing the skill set that Brad Richards really has.
And you're probably right about that because when he got that mega contract in Tampa, everyone said, "Oh, it's amazing! The sky's the limit. He can only go up from here." But he's remained pretty consistent. Yeah. Is he overpaid? Maybe he's a little overpaid, but You know what? Look at what he did in the playoffs with Tampa. Now he's going to get that opportunity in New York. Maybe, just maybe, because we alluded to Gabrick earlier and how he underperforms. Maybe having a guy like Richards there will be that guy in the dressing room who, as everyone points out, knows what it takes to win a cup.
Yeah.
He'll be that influence that you need on a guy like Gabrick, and even on the rest of the team that does that little scoring by committee, winning by committee thing. And Tortorella, I mean, Tortorella was Richards' coach when they won the cup. So
definitely,
maybe this is just what they need. Maybe the New York Rangers will sort of defy that, President's Choice. I'm thinking of groceries up here in Canada. President's Trophy. There's a brand of groceries called President's Choice.
Yeah.
Pardon my flub. But the President's Trophy race is nearing to the end, and if they win it, or they're even that close, and they do in fact win the conference, maybe they're that team that defies all the others that come in at the end, squeaking through and just says, no, we're not having this. This is our year. This is what's going to go. This is what's going to go down. It's Ranger time.
Exactly. So, and maybe they'll be partying like it's 1994 there in New York when all is said and done. We don't know. But you know what? Let's go ahead and give props to the St. Louis Blues I had talked about. Now, that's a team that was, floundering near the bottom. And then Ken Hitchcock comes in as the coach, and he works his magic. Absolute magic there in St. Louis, and look at him now.
I wish I could understand what Ken Hitchcock puts in his Kool-Aid, because honestly, the guy comes into a team that flounders. Okay, he's done it in just about every market he's been in, be it Dallas, Philadelphia, or Columbus. He comes in guns blazing. Team does phenomenal towards the beginning of his tenure, but then at about year 3, it's complete opposite. Team's in disarray, and they're absolutely horrendous. So I kind of reserve my positive comments for Hitchcock and his abilities, because it doesn't seem to have that Barry Trotz, Lindy Ruff, long-standing success. It's immediate success to only reverse itself in 3 years. I don't understand it. They've got a solid team in St. Louis. You look statistically, you look at the plus-minus, you look at everything across the board on this team, and yes, it's really good all around. And they've got some really strong players, some good defense, some good offense. Again, sort of an offense by committee type situation.
Right.
But I have a lot of difficulty with Ken Hitchcock and understanding how his coaching success is viewed, because, again, he comes in, is he going to win the Jack Adams this year? In all likelihood, yes. The NHL loves giving it to the worst to first coach. Although, if you ask me, Barry Trotz is beyond due. But the fact of the matter is he'll probably win the Jack Adams. But watch in 2 years. You tell me in 2 years, if this team is performing the same way, he has defied his own rule that he's established in the National Hockey League. Because when he comes in, again, he's great. When he leaves, the team is in utter disarray.
Yeah, you know what? I agree. And, some coaches, it's their style just starts to wear on players after a while. And in case Ken Hitchcock is watching or listening, we're not saying you're like Mike Keenan, who absolutely guts a franchise when he leaves. It's just a matter of, I know what you're saying. It's whatever he does, it's effective for a short period of time. Now, they say that every coach has a shelf life when they're in a city. And, the better coaches have a longer shelf life because, they're able to cycle in players, and the veterans who are there are still buying into what they're saying and still playing at a high level. Other guys, it's, their style may be a little bit abrasive in the kind of a small, almost unnoticeable way, but over the course of 2 or 3 years, it starts to wear on some of the veteran guys, and it reaches the point where they say, hey, we want this guy out of here, and the team starts underperforming. So that could be the case. Ken Hitchcock can be a little bit surly here and there, even though he has a wry sense of humor, but who knows what really goes on with behind the scenes with his team. So
yeah, and we don't know that. So it's not to say that he's a bad coach.
No, he isn't.
It's just to show it's demonstrating a pattern, and that's all it is. There is a demonstrated pattern of his tenures. They don't last very long, and when they end badly. It's not like, the team underperforms just by a little bit. They're done.
Right.
So that's all I'm putting out there. It's good for St. Louis. It's good for that market. They deserve this because they've had a lot of trouble for a lot of years right now. Good on St. Louis and their goaltending, by the way. Let's not forget. If I'm not mistaken, William Jennings is getting engraved right now with Halak and Elliott. So we'll have to look at that too and say, how are they even going to decide on who's going to be their goaltender for the playoffs? But that's maybe next week's discussion, right?
Most definitely. And you know what? That's a very good segue there, Mr. Schwartz. I know you always keep an eye on that clock up there. So we're just about out of time here, folks. So, very quickly, Lonnie, any last words there?
Well, as the playoffs get closer, I got to hype the contest. My Beardo 54 is up and running. Grow yourself a playoff beard. Use the steroids of facial hair with Photoshop and have some fun if you're a woman or a kid and you can't grow anything, or even if you're a guy and you want to paint something on and get creative, you can head over to the hockey54.com fan page on Facebook to get the lowdown on the event and the rules. It's presented by beardoware.ca. They have this awesome looking toque that they're the big presenter of our contest. However, we just landed Goon, which is quite possibly the best hockey movie since Slapshot, as another sponsor of the event. So, you can win some really cool Goon prizes too. So it keeps building. Grow that beard, put it up on hockey54.com as a member. It's free. Show your picture gallery throughout the playoffs, and you can win some awesome prizes.
All right, fantastic. And you know what? Lonnie is a goaltender by trade. I'm a defenseman by trade. Perhaps that's why we kind of see things the same way here. But let's go ahead and we're going to check out here. So remember, thepuckshopshere.com, discount hockey gear available online, free shipping on all orders over $75, a 10% discount when you use the promo code Inside Sports upon checkout. So when Lonnie needs a new catching glove, he'll go ahead and go to thepuckshopshere.com. So for Lonnie Schwartz, I'm Charles E. Smith Jr. Thank you for watching. This has been an Inside Sports production of Talkin Hockey, and we will see everyone here next week. So thanks for watching.